Close your eyes. Now think about this. If there is a dog near you right now, sleeping on the couch, curled at the foot of your bed, breathing those slow, easy breaths that dogs breathe when they feel completely safe, that animal is carrying something inside it, something ancient, something that started so long ago that the number barely makes sense when you say it out loud. 4 billion years. That is how long the story has been building. Not the story of dogs exactly. The story of everything that had to happen, every tiny, improbable step that had to go exactly right for that warm, soft creature to end up next to you tonight. Last time we explored creatures with 3 hearts and blue blood. Tonight we are staying closer to home, much closer. Tonight the story is about the animal that chose us, or maybe the animal we chose, or maybe, and this is the version I like best, the animal that met us somewhere in the middle on a cold night near a fire a very long time ago. This is the 4 billion year history of dogs. There is no rush. Let your breathing slow, let your eyes stay closed. We have all the time in the world, and the story will still be here in the morning. But for now, just listen. 4 billion years ago, there were no dogs. There were no animals of any kind. There were no plants, no trees, no grass, no flowers. The earth was mostly rock and water and heat, and the only living things on it were so small you could not have seen them even if you had been there to look. Single cells. Tiny, simple, impossibly fragile, floating in warm, shallow seas, doing the only thing they knew how to do, which was to exist. To divide, to make copies of themselves and hope the copies survived. That is how life began. Not with a roar, not with a bang, with a quiet split in a warm ocean so small that no one would have noticed. For a very, very long time, that is all life was. Single cells, drifting, dividing, dying. Billions of years passed. Continents formed and broke apart and formed again. Oceans rose and fell. The sky changed color. And still, life was nothing more than microscopic specks in the water. Then, somewhere around 600 million years ago, something changed. Cells began to stick together. Not by accident, but on purpose. They began to cooperate, to specialize, to divide labor among themselves. Some cells became the outside, some became the inside, some learned to move, some learned to sense. Multicellular life had arrived, and with it, everything became possible. The first animals were soft and strange. They had no bones, no teeth, no eyes. They looked like quilted pillows on the ocean floor, like something you might find in the back of a craft store. Scientists call this period the Ediacaran, and if you could have visited it, you would not have recognized a single living thing. But buried in that strangeness was a blueprint. The basic body plan that would eventually, after hundreds of millions of years of refinement, produce fish, and amphibians and reptiles and mammals, and one very specific mammal that would one distant evening rest its head on your lap and sigh. Around 530 million years ago, life did something extraordinary. It exploded. Not literally, of course, but in terms of diversity. In a geological blink, the Cambrian explosion produced almost every major body plan that exists today. Eyes appeared, jaws appeared, spines appeared, and once you have a spine, you have a vertebrate. And once you have a vertebrate, you are on the road to a dog. A very, very long road. But a road nonetheless. For the next 300 million years, life experimented. Fish crawled onto land and became amphibians. Amphibians developed the ability to lay eggs on dry ground and became reptiles. Reptiles grew enormous and ruled the earth for so long that their reign makes human civilization look like a footnote written in pencil. The dinosaurs. You know them. Everyone knows them. For 165 million years, they were the most successful large animals the planet had ever seen. They filled every niche. They dominated every continent. They were so thoroughly in charge that the small, furry, warm-blooded creatures scurrying around beneath their feet barely mattered. Those small, furry creatures were the early mammals. And they were, to put it gently, not impressive. They were tiny. They were nocturnal. They hid in burrows and ate insects and lived in constant fear of being stepped on. But they were warm-blooded. They nursed their young. They had something the dinosaurs did not, a quiet, patient resilience that would matter more than size ever could. Then, 66 million years ago, a rock the size of a small city fell out of the sky and changed everything. The asteroid struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact was so violent that it sent a wall of superheated debris into the atmosphere, blocked out the sun for months, collapsed food chains across the planet, and killed roughly 75% of all species on Earth, including, of course, the dinosaurs. Well, most of the dinosaurs. The birds made it, but that is a story for another night. What matters for our story is what happened next. With the dinosaurs gone, the world was suddenly astonishingly empty. All those niches, all those roles, all those ways of making a living on this planet were vacant. And the small, furry, warm-blooded creatures that had been hiding in burrows for 165 million years finally had their chance. The age of mammals had begun. Now, here is where the story of dogs really starts to take shape. Among those early mammals, there was a group called the Miacids. They lived around 60 million years ago, not long after the dinosaurs vanished. They were small, maybe the size of a weasel or a pine marten. They had long bodies, short legs, and flexible spines. They lived in trees. They ate insects and small animals. They were not particularly fast or strong or frightening, but they were adaptable. And from this one humble group of tree-climbing, insect-eating little creatures came an entire dynasty of carnivores. Everything with retractable claws and everything with non-retractable claws traces back to the Miacids. Cats, bears, seals, hyenas, raccoons, and dogs. The family tree split. One branch became the feliforms, the cat-like carnivores. The other became the caniforms, the dog-like carnivores. This split happened roughly 55 million years ago, and it is one of those quiet moments in evolutionary history that does not get the attention it deserves. Think about it. Every cat that has ever curled up on a windowsill and every dog that has ever fetched a ball share a common ancestor. A small, nervous, tree-dwelling mammal that would not have looked much like either of them. From the caniform side, the first true canid appeared around 40 million years ago in what is now North America. Its name was Hesperocyon, and if you saw one, you would not think dog. You would think something between a fox and a small raccoon. It was about the size of a house cat. It had a long, flexible body, short legs, and 5 toes on each foot, including a dew claw set deep enough to suggest it could still climb trees. Hesperocyon was not fast. It was not a pack hunter. It did not howl at the moon, but it had one remarkable innovation that would define the entire canid family for the next 40 million years. It evolved a bony structure in its inner ear called an auditory bulla. This small, hard shell around the middle ear gave Hesperocyon sharper hearing than almost any other carnivore of its time. It could hear prey moving through leaves. It could hear the footsteps of predators. It could hear the world in a way its competitors could not. Hearing, that is what launched the dogs. Over the next 30 million years, the canid family did what all successful families do. It branched, it diversified, it tried things. Some branches became the Borophagenes, the bone-crushing dogs. These were heavy, powerful animals with jaws like hydraulic presses. They filled the role that hyenas fill in Africa today, crunching through bone to get at the marrow inside. They were successful for millions of years, and then they went extinct, as most things eventually do. Another branch became the Hesperocyanines themselves, the original canid line. They, too, eventually vanished. But one branch survived, the one that would produce every living canid on Earth today. Foxes, jackals, coyotes, African wild dogs with their painted coats and democratic pack decisions, Arctic foxes, white as snow, surviving winters that would kill most mammals in hours, and wolves. The gray wolf, Canis lupus, emerged roughly 1 million years ago, and when it arrived, it was unlike anything the canid family had produced before. Wolves were big, wolves were social, wolves hunted in coordinated packs, communicating through body language and vocalizations that amounted to a kind of language. They could take down prey 10 times their size, elk, bison, moose, animals that no single predator could handle alone. The secret was cooperation. Wolves understood, in whatever way wolves understand things, that the group was stronger than the individual, that a hunt coordinated across 6 or 8 or 12 animals could succeed where a solo effort would fail, that sharing a kill, even with those who did not make the final strike, was better than starving alone. This is important. Remember this, because it is exactly this instinct, this deep, ancient willingness to cooperate, to live in a group, to share food and warmth and safety, that made everything that came next possible. Somewhere between 15,000 and 40,000 years ago, and scientists are still arguing about exactly when and where wolves and humans found each other. The details are debated. The broad strokes are not. Two species of social, cooperative, intelligent hunters began to overlap. They hunted the same prey, they traveled the same landscapes, they lived in the same cold, dangerous Ice Age world where survival was never guaranteed. And somehow, against every reasonable expectation, they did not destroy each other. They did the opposite. They began to help each other. One of the most beautiful theories about how this happened is called the campfire theory. It goes like this. Humans, as they do, made camps. They built fires. They killed animals and ate the meat, and when they were done, they left the bones and scraps at the edges of their camps. Wolves, being wolves, noticed this. Free food is free food, and wolves are not philosophically opposed to an easy meal, which, to be fair, is exactly what most of us would do if someone offered free food. The boldest wolves, the ones with slightly less fear of humans, began to creep closer. Not to attack, just to scavenge, to eat what was left. And the humans watching from the firelight noticed something interesting. The wolves that hung around the edges of camp were useful. They barked when strangers approached. They scared off other predators. They were, without intending to be, an alarm system, and so the humans let them stay. Picture that scene. A cold night 10,000 generations ago, a fire crackling in a clearing, humans huddled close, wrapped in animal skins, their children sleeping between them, and just beyond the reach of the light, a pair of golden eyes watching, not with hunger, not with aggression, with something closer to curiosity, and on the human side of the fire, someone watching back, not reaching for a weapon, just watching, maybe tossing a bone into the dark, maybe doing nothing at all, which is its own kind of invitation. That is how it started, not with a command, not with a leash, with two species on either side of a fire deciding that the other was not a threat. Generation after generation, the wolves that were slightly less afraid of humans survived better than the ones that ran. They got more food. They had more offspring. Their offspring were, on average, slightly less afraid than their parents. This is not a fast process. This is centuries, millennia, thousands of generations of very slow, very gradual change. No one decided to domesticate a wolf. No one drew up a plan. It happened the way most of the important things in life happen. Slowly, then all at once. The wolves became less aggressive. Their bodies changed. Their skulls became shorter, their teeth smaller. Their ears over many generations began to flop. Their tails began to curl. These are the physical markers of domestication, and they appear in almost every animal that has ever been domesticated, from foxes to pigs to cattle. The fierce, independent, sharp-eared wolf was becoming something else entirely. It was becoming a dog. The earliest confirmed domestic dogs appear in the archaeological record around 15,000 years ago, though the genetic evidence suggests the process began much earlier. Recent research analyzing hundreds of ancient canid skulls found that distinctive dog skull shapes first appeared around 11,000 years ago, with surprising diversity already present. These were not one uniform type. They were already becoming different things in different places. The first dogs did not look like any modern breed. They were medium-sized, tan or brown, with pointed ears and curled tails. They looked more than anything like the village dogs you can still find today in parts of Africa, Asia, and Central America. Dogs that belong to no one and everyone. Dogs that live alongside humans but have not been shaped by deliberate breeding. For most of the history of dogs, this is what a dog looked like. Just a dog. But humans, being humans, could not leave well enough alone. As civilizations rose, as people settled into farming and herding and building cities, they began to notice that some dogs were better at certain things than others. Some dogs had a stronger instinct to guard. Some were faster. Some were better at tracking scents. Some were gentler with children. Some were fiercer with intruders. And people began to breed for those traits, deliberately, choosing which dogs could mate with which, selecting for the qualities they valued, discarding the ones they did not. This is where breeds come from, not from nature, from us. In ancient Egypt, dogs that looked remarkably like the modern Basenji appeared in art and burial sites dating back 5,000 years. The Basenji does not bark. It yodels. It is one of the oldest known breeds, and the Egyptians loved it enough to mummify it alongside their pharaohs. In ancient Rome, the Molossus was a war dog. Massive, powerful, armored in leather, sent into battle alongside legions. It is likely the ancestor of modern mastiffs, and through them, most of the giant breeds we know today. In China, the Pekingese was bred exclusively for the imperial court. It was so prized that stealing one was punishable by death. These dogs lived in palaces, were carried in the sleeves of robes, and were treated in every practical sense like royalty. In the frozen north, sled dogs pulled loads across thousands of miles of ice. In the mountains of Tibet, huge, fierce dogs guarded monasteries. In the countryside of Britain, collies herded sheep with a precision that still astonishes anyone who watches them work. Every continent, every culture, every climate, wherever humans went, dogs went with them. And wherever dogs went, they became whatever humans needed them to be. Here is a fact that never stops being extraordinary. A Chihuahua and a Great Dane are the same species. The same species, Canis lupus familiaris. They can, at least in theory, produce offspring together. A 2-pound dog that fits in a purse and a 170-pound dog that can rest its chin on your kitchen counter share the same DNA, the same ancestry, the same ancient wolf that once crept toward a campfire in the dark. No other species on Earth shows this much physical variation. Not even close. The difference in size between the smallest and largest dog breeds is greater than the difference between any other domesticated animal. And all of that variation was produced not over millions of years, but over a few thousand. Some of it in just the last few hundred. Dogs are in a very real sense a mirror of human desire. We looked at the wolf and saw potential, and then we sculpted it, century by century, into 1,000 different shapes. But what did dogs give us in return? What did we get from this partnership that was worth all those centuries of effort? The obvious answers are practical. Dogs herded our livestock. They guarded our homes. They tracked game through forests we could not navigate alone. They pulled sleds across landscapes that would have killed us without them. They found people buried in avalanches, detected bombs in airports, guided the blind through city streets. But those are just the things dogs do. What dogs gave us is something harder to measure and more important than any of it. They gave us companionship, the kind that does not ask for anything in return, the kind that is there when you wake up and there when you fall asleep, the kind that does not care what you look like, what you earn, or whether your day was good or bad, the kind that simply shows up every single day and stays. There is no record of the first human who loved a dog, no cave painting of someone scratching a belly, no ancient poem about a tail wagging, but we know it happened. We know it because we are still doing it, 15,000 years later, with the same helpless, complete devotion. There is a study that I think about often. In 2015, researchers in Japan discovered something remarkable about what happens when a dog and its owner look into each other's eyes. When a dog gazes at its owner, the owner's brain releases oxytocin. Oxytocin is sometimes called the love hormone, though that is a simplification. It is the chemical your brain produces when you hold a newborn baby, when you embrace someone you love, when you feel safe and connected and not alone. The dog's gaze triggers it. And here's the extraordinary part. The oxytocin released in the owner then changes the owner's behavior, making them more affectionate, more engaged. And the dog picks up on that warmth, and the dog's brain releases oxytocin too, which makes the dog gaze more, which triggers more oxytocin in the human. It is a feedback loop, a chemical conversation between two species that evolved separately for tens of millions of years, and yet somehow found a way to speak the same biological language of love. Wolves do not do this. Wolves raised by humans from birth do not trigger this response. Only dogs. Only the animal that spent 15,000 years learning to read our faces, our moods, our hearts. Dogs have a dedicated region in their brains for processing human faces. Not dog faces. Human faces. Researchers using brain imaging found that when dogs see a photograph of a human, a specific area in their temporal cortex activates, an area that maps onto the same region humans use to process faces. They evolved to see us, not just to look at us, but to read us, to understand whether we are happy or sad, angry or playful, welcoming or threatening. They did this not because we trained them to, but because over thousands of generations, the dogs that could read human emotions survived better than the ones that could not. And they dream about us. This is not poetry. This is neuroscience. Dogs experience REM sleep, the same phase of sleep where humans dream. Researchers studying the brain activity of sleeping dogs found patterns consistent with the replay of waking experiences. A dog that spent the day with you, playing in the yard, walking through the park, sitting beside you while you read, processes those experiences again at night, in their sleep, in their dreams. When your dog twitches and whimpers softly in the middle of the night, when their paws move as if they are running, there is a reasonable scientific chance that they are dreaming about you, about your face, your voice, the way you smell when you come home. Speaking of smell, a dog's nose is perhaps the most remarkable sensory organ in the entire animal kingdom. Where you have about 6 million olfactory receptors, a dog has up to 300 million. The part of their brain devoted to processing smell is, proportionally, 40 times larger than yours. But here is the detail that I find most beautiful. Dogs can smell time, not in a mystical sense, in a physical one. As the day progresses, air currents in a room change. Warm air rises along the walls, travels across the ceiling, and descends in the center. These currents carry scent molecules in predictable patterns. A dog lying in the middle of a room can detect the shift in these currents and, from that, determine roughly how much time has passed. This is why your dog knows when you are about to come home, even before they hear your car. The concentration of your scent in the house decreases at a predictable rate throughout the day. When it reaches a certain level, the dog has learned that you are about to walk through the door. They are not telling time with a clock. They are telling time with love. Measuring the hours by how much your scent has faded and waiting for it to return. There is something else worth knowing. Dogs are one of the only animals that understand pointing. If you point at something across a room, your dog will look where you are pointing. This sounds simple, but it is not. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, our evolutionary cousins with whom we share 98% of our DNA, generally cannot do this. They look at your hand. They do not follow the gesture. Dogs do. Dogs understand that your finger is not the message. The direction is the message. They grasp human intention in a way that almost no other animal can, and they learned it not through formal training, but through 15,000 years of paying very close attention to us. We are nearing the end of our story now, and I want to bring you back to where we started. That dog. The one near you right now, or the one you are thinking about. The one whose breathing you know by heart. The one who greets you at the door as if you have been gone for 100 years every single time, even if you only went to check the mail. That dog carries 4 billion years of history in its bones. It carries the memory of the first cells dividing in a warm sea. The first animals, soft and strange on the ocean floor. The first vertebrates flexing spines they had only just invented. The first mammals hiding from dinosaurs in the dark. It carries the legacy of the Miacids, those tiny tree climbers who started the whole carnivore dynasty. Of Hesperocyan with its remarkable ears, listening for sounds in a world that was not yet ready for wolves. Of the bone-crushing dogs that rose and fell. Of the gray wolf, patient and social and fierce, surviving ice ages and extinctions and everything the planet could throw at it. And it carries the memory of a night, a very long time ago, when a wolf crept toward a campfire and a human did not chase it away. That moment, that small, quiet, unremarkable moment when two species decided to trust each other. It changed everything. It changed how we hunt, how we farm, how we guard our homes, how we find lost people in the mountains, how we comfort the sick, how we grieve, how we heal. It changed how we love. Because that is what dogs taught us. if we are honest about it. They taught us that love does not have to be complicated, that loyalty does not require negotiation, that the best things in life are a warm place to sleep, someone to be near, and the simple, overwhelming joy of a familiar face coming through the door. Dogs did not have to stay with us. That is the part people forget. After the first generation, after the second, after the 100th, dogs could have left. They could have returned to the wild. Wolves were still out there. The forest was still an option. But they stayed. Generation after generation, for 15,000 years, they stayed. They slept beside our fires. They followed us across continents. They adapted to our lives, our schedules, our homes, our moods. They learned our languages, not the words, but the tones, the feelings behind the words, the things we do not say out loud. They chose us, and we, in our own clumsy human way, chose them back. So tonight, as you drift off, think about that. Think about the extraordinary improbability of it all. 4 billion years of evolution. Billions of species that have come and gone. Countless paths that could have been taken and were not. And at the end of all of it, after all those eons of trial and error and extinction and reinvention, 2 completely different species found each other in the cold and decided that life was better together. If there is a dog near you right now, you might reach over and rest your hand on them. Feel the warmth of their body, the rise and fall of their breathing, the steady drumbeat of a heart that, like yours, has been billions of years in the making. They are dreaming right now, probably, dreaming in that ancient brain about something familiar and safe, about a walk, a game, a voice, maybe about you. Let that be the last thought you carry into sleep tonight, that you are loved by something ancient, that 4 billion years of evolution looked at you and decided you were worth staying for. Close your eyes now. Rest. The story is done. Good night.